You are listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This show is dedicated to those who live and love from the heart in infinite ways. In today's episode, we will discuss, share, gain insights, and get clarity on the wisdom and teachings of the mystic and seer Almin, as well as discover more about the miraculous healing modality called Belvaspata. Your host for this show is Paul.
Hello everyone, I'm your host Paul. This is Radio Belvaspata, South Africa, broadcasting out of the East Rand of Benoni into South Africa, into the world, north, south, east and west. Welcome to the show today. Our title, theme, discussion will evolve and revolve around the subject matter called magic, mayhem, mystery and existence. Today's cosmic mantra, absolutely beautiful. I am the conscious artist of the artistry of my life. Thank you for joining our show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everyone for all the new comments and the new follows that we've got. We truly appreciate every moment of sharing this show with you, and we hope that it is a moment of your week where the gathering of the Light family happens, both within South Africa and internationally. And for all of those that have just shared with us from their hearts what they are experiencing, for us it is just a monumental moment of absolute passion and enthusiasm, and just knowing that we could maybe make an inspiration, make the change, inspire somebody, just one person. We think that we've then been very, very successful in what we are doing. In studio tonight with me is the incredibly gifted, dynamic artist and master Diane, and she is just simply knocking my knee at the moment and blushing a bright red because we're saying this on air, but it's true. And from my perspective, Diane is an incredible master. And hi, Diane.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for that amazing introduction. Good evening to our listeners, and we really have a wonderful show for you tonight. And lots of discussion, lots of inspiration, lots of magic.
So for everyone listening, what we do within the show, we begin to prepare the information and what we will be sharing from, the week before, from the night after our earlier show. So from last week, we were speaking about working with the ascension attitudes of love and praise and gratitude, and working with all of that. And then, as we decide who's going to be in studio and who's going to be producing the show, everybody brings different information to the fore. And Diane and I have just about brought identical information together, and really an incredible moment just to understand that we are all working on exactly the same things. And we've said it before, we might not be able to understand it at that moment, we might not be able to audibly share about it or explain it on a deep enough level, but when we just have a simple, easy, open conversation together, we begin to realize where we're at, and that we are all in absolute oneness, working our way through this incredible journey of ascension and resurrection. And what we were sharing pre-show, we should just write the same diary or find a publicist and tell them what to write, and we have the same things, but from our own perspective, of course.
Absolutely. That always astounds me, that as we get together pre-show and just check that, we are organized and prepared, miraculously we have investigated, we've discussed, we've gone down similar paths. So, Paulie, I'm really looking forward to this evening.
Well, yeah, I think we're going to be in for some great insights and great sharing. And everyone that's listening, please, if you're listening live at this moment, we welcome your comments here on Spreaker.com's page, or you can send it on our WhatsApp group if you're a member of that. And we look forward to sharing that insight and just being in that moment of understanding that we are all in this particular space together. So, Diane, I wanted to share with you and with everyone else that there's been a process for me where I'm kind of done with the past. I'm kind of working with what I still had in the past, working with it all, but there's a newness coming into being. And it's something, as we were saying earlier, that I am so trusting within myself. And it's like that trust is now on the surface, overriding the old fears which would have held me back. So I'm not saying I don't get stressed or I don't have reactions going, and those still go on certain levels. But very quickly, this aspect of you just ground yourself, you trust, you say, I trust this particular process, and you are so into it. And for me, that's such a powerful experience.
You know, Paulie, this effortless knowing is really something that I've longed for, but have never really experienced it myself. And this week, for the first time, I had to make a decision about something that has really plagued me for many, many years. And there was no intellectual input, there was no emotional input. It was simply experienced on an experiential level, so that there was no other choice. You just simply knew that this was the way to go. So you weren't looking at the pros and cons intellectually. The emotion was almost, put on the shelf. And that effortless knowing that this is what has to happen now.
And those are such powerful and beautiful moments. So for me, I look at trust that has its cousins. And one of those cousins seems to be courage,
yes,
in order to face all those moments which I may not have had in the past. And so we're getting all of these qualities and attitudes developing. And I was thinking earlier today, yes, we've been working on the ascension attitudes through our healing, through the practice of Bell Vaspata healing, through the inner work that we're doing. It has become an inherent part of us, and we've been growing cosmically with that. I mean, it's not just us, it's a united movement which is just developing this huge wave of frequency. And I'm going, do you think that every single quality that we live from the high heart in this year of high magic will then become an ascension attitude? And I'm just thinking, yes, one will feed,
yes,
and therefore everything has to grow into its highest form.
But Paul, you know what I'm thinking now? During the week, Ella and Sir Gay, they ran that free webinar. And there was something which I think Almen had actually mentioned. And if I could just take a few minutes just to find it, because it just seems to me that nothing is wasted. That duality formed the foundation for godhood. Godhood formed a foundation for oneness.
Right.
Oneness formed a foundation for resurrection. Resurrection for the immaculate white life. So white light. Nothing is wasted. Everything contributes to the growth of the next phase or the next step.
And you can't say one is better than the other. It's just a door opens, we walk through it. Another door then opens, we walk through it. We're trying to create some power words around the marketing for Radio Bell Vaspata. And one of them is our new logo. And it says, live graciously in one moment and then the next.
Yes.
And that's been with me the last few weeks. And that's what we're doing. We're learning to live in the graciousness of this moment very powerfully, and then create that graciousness so we step graciously into the next one. And it's a bit of a train here and there running riot. I mean, in all openness there. But we can certainly feel and get to that understanding. And it is something I've never imagined that we would get there. You can feel that that's what you wanted. But what is rising up for all of us, and it has to be for all of humanity, those choices now, it's just really an incredible moment. I'm so in gratitude to have the Seer Almin in my vicinity of scope of being.
How astounding that we have been allowed, or we have chosen, or we've experienced this amazing woman, and the tools that she has made available to us, which she said on numerous occasions were in mystic schools, but only for perhaps the elite, only for a certain number of people. This has been made available to anyone who makes the choice to walk the journey
And recognizes it.
And is willing. How often do we see something, but we do not manifest that intent? We do not manifest our willingness to make that choice.
It's really just a moment to ponder on and just to absorb and have an open heart about. So this week I found this angel called Nanook Usavi. also known as Pasharut. Listen, now this is just where I'm at. The one who reveals the folly of pacifying others. Makes sense. The function is the welcome of creativity. It embodies the principle of boredom has been the cause of much non-life enhancing conduct. It is the state we enter into when we think we have no options. Existence abounds with endless options. The adventure of life is to find them. Doesn't that explain what we are talking about now? I mean, I'm waking up early in the morning. The creativity, the way of creation, of manifesting things, the hugeness of it all is very, very overwhelming for me, but incredibly exciting. So I'm walking around in the state of absolute physical exhaustion, but complete exaltation at the same time. It's like you're doing it all.
But you know, Paul, I've seen that in you, is this flow of creativity, which is not a trickle. It is flowing, nourishing, and spilling out to anyone who happens to be in the same vicinity as you.
I love to share, and I'm excited about this and do this and do that. And then I see people and their eyes glaze over and I go, okay, just take it down a notch because that's where they're at,
yes.
You know? But you're absolutely correct. It's just pouring out. Now, who can live in the old ways when all of this is coming forward? And it's all new manifestation. It's just creation that's coming on. So, yeah, thank you, Diana. I think that's really exciting.
And you know what, Paul, I just want to mention, it says existence abounds with endless options. That's all about the life in the immaculate white light. That's a reality that is boundless, limitless. And we have a means of achieving and manifesting this.
Really beautiful. So for all our listeners, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be posting up the sigil for this particular angel, Nanook Usavi, also known as the angel Pasharut, onto our show's episode logo for tonight. So you can download it from there if you wish, or you can just go online and find it, and some of Almi's teachers will come up with it. But then just keep it close with you for the next few days and just put your hand on it and just feel the energy and just work with what you've got, because, you know, everybody has their own pace and has their own way.
And there's no doubt that these sigils are hugely powerful. I'm always overwhelmed and astounded when I place my hands on these sigils to feel the energy that pours from them. I had a back injury, which there's no doubt about. I manifested with my own fear and terror, and for many, many weeks I was in a great deal of pain. Subsequently, I've been doing the sigils and the spinal affirmations, and they have their own sigils, each vertebra, and it has its own aphorism as well. And I'm always astounded at the frequency and the vibration of those sigils. They are so enormously powerful.
Really fascinating, and get more and more powerful as we use them. It just the usage of them increases the frequency within the self. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we're going to listen to now is an audio from Almeen, and it's a little bit old in terms of, about a year old in terms of where we're at now, but it's part of the theme of the show, and it's entitled, Why Was I Able to Open the Lower Underworld? So let's listen to that, and then we'll get into the rest of our subject matter.
Wonderful.
During our last silent retreat, certain very pertinent questions arose as I did my blessings each day on the participants, and I looked through them the way a seer looks through a seer stone, like an oracle, and I saw that these questions were waiting to be answered. During this webinar, we will attempt to do just that. The first question was, why is the refugee situation happening? How can future friction between nations, races, and tribes of different levels of development be avoided, especially when they end up in one country, like what is happening in Europe? The refugee situation is happening because during the end of December 2014 and January of 2015, while I was in a 6-week coma, I went down into what is the lower underworld and was able to find a lot of soul groups that had been captured there by black magic, and, in some instances, their place was taken by those who had no right to be on earth. So I found there Jews, I found huge numbers of Chinese, I found there other groups of people as well. Some were actually Germans. So why was it necessary for me to unlock the gates so that they could make their refugee exodus and come into the middle world, which is our reality? Why was I able to do that? Because we have solved enough of our own illusions. We have purified ourselves enough over these past years to justify opening the doors to the subconscious, something our behaviorists don't even know exists. It is a lower level in which things have been stuffed that we have not been aware of. The subconscious has a very strong influence on our daily life, but this has a strong influence on the subconscious. So it was time for us to open the gates and start to examine some of the emotions, the misperceptions, and so on that we had buried there. The subconscious equates to the underworld of the planet.
And you're back in studio with myself, Paul, with the wonderful artist and master Diane, and with the musician and artist Nico at our sound controls. Thank you everyone for tuning into Radio Bell Hospital South Africa. It's our pleasure to share with you all our insights and the work that we do each and every week. So we were listening there to the great mystic and seer Almeen as she discussed the aspects of discoveries and insights she gained through a state of being in a coma for 6 weeks quite a while back, and well recovered by now by the sounds of it. But she was talking about why she was then able to uncover the lower underworld and the perfection of that particular experience, even though her health had been in dramatic decline at that particular time. And again, it just shows you what a caliber of being that she has in terms of the role that she's taken on, that she took that knock for all of us. But we've discussed all of this in earlier radio shows, and what we've been discussing over the last few weeks especially is the impact of the Trump presidency within the United States. And last week on Almeen Diary, a post went up talking about how Trump and the night that witchcraft died in the world. And apparently a call went out to witches nationwide to oust Trump from power. And when asked about it, Almeen said that the prophecy exists in the Lemurian records about this event. And her notes that were looked at then showed the following post. In arrogance shall they raise their head. Where there was power, there shall be impotence instead. No longer content in the shadows to hide. In one night witchcraft has died. Confounded shall they fall, holy instruments of the infinite rule over all. And I looked at that post, and the impact that it had on me was, wow, we have actually got to this point again where ancient records from the ancient libraries of the Lemurians can come in and just change your perception and your concept just like that.
Yeah, it just highlights again the impotence of linear time. That something which was written eons ago has relevance today.
It's still there with it, in the way that she analyzes it and remembers it at that particular time. It just shows you how up to date she literally is with what is happening in this particular moment. But again, it highlights what we were saying in the last few shows as well, Diane, literally about, a prophecy is made and pushed out, and it sits there, and then we work with it, and then it comes to be. And it might take years, or it might take now, but it happens. That ability of karma and effect has certainly gone for me. All I know is it might take a little bit of time and energy for it to go, but we don't even have to actively work on creating these things anymore. It's there.
I think this also relates to cause and effect. that we are the cause, and that gap between cause and effect is getting smaller and smaller. And I definitely think it's linked to that.
Well, when we talk about cause and effect, it brings the aspect of karma in, which has been huge in terms of spiritual teachings and followings, and many people have different concepts and perceptions. And I think most of us have an understanding of what you sow, you reap on some level,
Yes.
So another post went up in Almeen Diary and was how magic creates karma. And the question posed to Almeen following that earlier post was, could you define witchcraft? And this is in response to that Lemurian prophecy on the death of witchcraft. And some were claiming that good or white witches operate with a natural law, which is understood to be in alignment with the divine. And this seems contrary to what these people have heard being saying over years of studying Almeen's work. So Almeen says, nowhere in any cosmic law is it permissible to control another's behavior or its outcome, whether well or ill-intended. The word magic has been grossly misused to apply to any enforced control of another, or for that matter, your own life. That's a huge point.
Yes, I love that as well.
It involves everything. Magic, as we use it, is the exposing of the underlying perfection by removing the illusion that obscures it. You will notice that the bodies of incorruptible magic we've given always had a body of perception coupled with it. The power source is not external. It is the power that's released as you release your own inner illusions. The external but directs the power to increase the quality of your journey by exposing the perfection that already exists. Any magic as it exists in any form other than what I have explained, this is Almeen, brings painful repercussions to the practitioner, no matter how well intended. The only difference the benevolence of the intention makes is that anything that is genuinely a misguided act due to lack of understanding can be reversed and karma prevented by changing the perception. And a comment by Almeen says, a moment well lived can change the past and the future. There's a note here that says, we remind you that even in Belvaspata healing, these criteria for true magic are strictly observed. The angel places the healing sigils in the fields of the patient until they are willing to receive some or all of it into their body. Healing is not enforced. And then a huge moment. I mean, that gap between cause and effect is what we used to call karma.
Yes.
And we don't have that going on anymore. I think something has replaced it which we're not quite clear because we haven't got an understanding of it through no experience of understanding it, but we will develop that. And it's that we are the cause. And I think earlier this year in February, Almeen had released something that said you've got to choose whether you're the cause or the effect.
Yes.
And masters have to be the cause of everything, but without control. We just got to understand the high magic of it.
Well, Paul, I think the moment you accept that you are the creator or manifester of what happens in your life, that there is no victim mentality, that you accept that what is happening in your life has been manifested by you, then it really dispenses with any karma. Because you are in control and you are really the conductor of your own life, creating beautiful, sweet music or creating bitterness and mayhem.
You have a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's what we were discussing earlier as we opened the show, is that we've got to this point now of perception and power together. It's not just a theory any longer, well, we should perceive we can do this, maybe we work it out, or having power in terms of an upside down process where we're trying to control that journey even. It's just unfolding.
And not being attached to the outcome and not trying to control a situation, because that's what we were talking about here, how black magic is to try and control your life and another's by manipulation, by love, by any means. So if you can lay that aside, then there's no control, there's no connection to outcome, then there is pure intent. And intent is what is needed, I think, which sort of rings the bell and ushers you in to this new reality of the immaculate white light.
Which is certainly, I'm going to say manifested, not manifesting, it has manifested. I don't think you and I'm speaking presumptuously at this moment, or anyone for that matter, has completely understood the dynamics
Absolutely.
and the depth of that true
Yes.
experience. It will take us some time, and I'm just using inverted commas
Yes.
there, to begin to understand where we're at before the next door opens, whatever that's going to be. Because it's not the end of a journey.
Yes,
It's the opening of something else.
another
for us.
portal that is ushering us in. And that's something that I've made a decision is that yes, we get this information, it is exceptional, it lays down the intent, but it has to be experienced by you. It's got to be experiential. You have got to experience, because it's only from that point and that reality that anything is meaningful. It has no meaning unless you have experienced it yourself. It is just simply words on paper.
That's it, and that's theory. That's a goal to work towards. Oh, I like that, or that feels good. But that's on such a mundane level. I can't explain to anybody, and I know those who are following Almi's teachings and are putting things into practice will understand perhaps where I'm coming from, but I cannot explain that to anybody unless you're experiencing it, because the frequency of it is so high, and to keep that within the self is just something unknown. I'm stuck for words.
It's unknown territory. So yes, we are the scout. If we're talking about subpersonalities, we are the scouts going into the unknown territory, and there are moments of trepidation, of fear, of lack of faith. But despite it all, the doors open. We are, by hook or by crook, pushed through, pulled up the mountain, get our fingers in a little foothold, and there we lift ourselves and look over the mountain, and voila, there is this magnificent scenery, and you're at the summit.
Yeah. But we say that there's no end to the journey and there's no point of arrival. But for me, those are points of reference along the way. I don't get stuck in them because I know that it's going to unfold. But it's okay to sit and pause, I think, for a few moments and just enjoy
Just catch your
the
breath.
experience. Don't give it an identity. Just go, oh, okay.
This is magnificent.
interesting.
Yes.
And then delve back into whatever the next step brings for us.
I think in that there is a kind of sacred rest, because you've got your fingers in the little foothold, and you've pulled yourself up, and you need to be in mindfulness or mindlessness to enjoy this magnificent, effortless revelation.
And a few weeks ago, our show was about mindfulness and mindlessness.
Yes, it was.
Kind of, never mind, just do that.
And maybe the mountain can be compared to this incubation chamber,
Wow.
which is now sort of disintegrating.
Absolutely
That
huge last week's show, yeah.
that eggshell that has been clambered out of, that is in the process of being dissolved. And that's all about density, living without density. I look forward to that time where those polarities are gone.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I really do.
But there is a power in the perception that knows that we are able to dissolve density,
Yes.
and that it is happening, because we see those moments. Like you were explaining earlier about a decision that you made,
Yes.
and you let all the process that you would normally or usually have allowed to control you,
Yes.
you let it all go because it's no longer important, and you made whatever decision that was,
Yes.
and you took a step what you needed for yourself there. In other words, you created a moment that is very, very powerful for you. I mean, that is just huge.
You know, Paul, we were going to talk about love and compassion. Maybe it's a good idea to bring it in now, because it really speaks of self-love. And you talked last week, I think, about divine compassion and the power that unifies the world with. That is the unifying force, is this divine compassion.
Well, now that you mention it, I know we've had a few shows over the last few months where we were bringing this aspect of live in compassion and empathy and understanding, but still don't get trapped in others' journeys, and have that for yourself on all different levels. So yeah, great comment.
Allowing another I would say probably the dignity or the gift of experiencing their own pain, their own tears, I think is part of loving, of having divine compassion,
I'm with that,
is
yeah.
allowing those people and ourselves to feel the feeling, to feel the pain, to feel the tears that is part of their journey or our journey. Because in the past, the first thing that you do when you see someone upset and crying and suffering is to rush in and to try and fix.
Yeah.
And that really speaks nothing of this divine love.
Yeah, they must have fixed it van arrives at the front door very quickly. Does it
you
not?
the Saviour, you're going to change things. But by doing that, you disempower another.
And likewise, I think through the shifts that have gone on for me is that people expect that from you because you've done that in the past, you put it into a box. And as we've dissolved the density of this box, those relationships are also changing and altering because people can no longer come to you and create that tribal
mentality.
Process of holding you, in prison or a prisoner of that particular mentality.
Because if you can do the work, then that means they don't have to. So I think looking beyond what appears to be is the true gift.
I think it's a great deal of wisdom, especially as a healer, and perhaps doing things, healing modalities like Belvaspatar, to be able to see that potential in another and allow them to do it without having to fix it. To me, that is just a gift of compassion and love.
And actually, Paul, I'm just thinking that therein is the perfection of the lack of density, to see the perfection unfolding beyond what appears to be. That really is living in immaculate white light.
And also knowing that through the angelic sustenance of Belvaspatar, that those seeds are planted and will grow when they're ready.
Yes.
That is also magical for me. I mean, so many things could have happened years ago doing Belvaspatar. You're only seeing it right now in terms of the power of that person stepping into and owning who they are at that moment.
That is actually the most magical statement because it lies there ready to seed. It's been germinating, and then just as that little mushroom pushes its head through the sand, so this miracle unfolds.
Personally, sometimes I have to take a deep breath when that is going on and just remind myself it's not my journey, mine is mine and theirs is theirs.
Absolutely.
As they're going on. But again, that authenticity that develops in those processes with people that you're working with on any level of process, literally to be able to watch that unfold and knowing that it will.
Yes.
That is the gift.
Yes. Knowing that it will.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear to be, there's no sign of it happening, but you know that it will manifest.
Well, I think the first thing that happens after a session of Belvaspatar healing, or whatever that's for and around, is when somebody can authentically attain the status of owning their own journey. I think that's the first thing for me I've noticed that switches on.
Yes.
And when that switches on, then, well, the party and the world is yours.
Yeah, that is the light bulb moment. It's that, what is the word I'm looking for? No, not manifestation, but it's that knowing. Yeah. It's that moment that changes everything.
Everything. And you were talking earlier about that effortless knowing.
Yes.
Those are the words you use, which is a beautiful comment always by Almeen. And I think people get into that state of trust and ability just to let it flow through them. Then it's magic. Then magic
has been created. Another thing that Almeen speaks about is the magic of the magenta life. The magenta light, and how the magenta light is absolutely necessary in the resurrection phase to really counter the density that we live in, or we are aware of, or which we allow within us. And that magenta light, together with intent, with visualization, has enormous power. I didn't realize, and maybe Nick, I think he talked about this once, that, and I only realized that this afternoon, is that every color has a music note attached to it. And every color has a wavelength.
And a frequency.
And a frequency.
It has to have its own individual
So
frequency.
I can understand the power of this magenta light. In fact, Almeen talks about, on a daily basis, visualize light permeating your cells, and then the shadow of your past dreams begin to dissolve. So the magenta light, together with your intention, together with your visualization, begins to dissolve the density.
Really incredible. Just let the box fall away and step into a new world all for itself. Okay, so we're talking really about the aspects of magic and resurrection. We're talking about the ascension process. We're talking about, how all of these things evolve and change and alter as we go through step by step. What we're going to do now is listening to a few short audios by the mystic and seer Almeen. And she had a courses called The Magic of the Gods and Evolved Man, which was one from last year. And there's 3 short discourses or classes by Almeen as she goes into about combining the kingdoms of gods, humans and angels. And I'm just going, Jane, that's interesting because each level of light that we've been speaking, one has nurtured the humans, one has nurtured the angels, one has nurtured the gods, and brought all of those into one waveform, which is oneness. We're going to talk about rooting the reality of Godhood, and Almeen talks about the 3rd stage of resurrection, through the magic of the gods and the evolved man. So let's listen to that, and then we'll come back on the other side.
Wonderful.
In this 5th segment, as facilitated and taught by Ella, to awaken the power and to strengthen the reality of Godhood, you will be doing a most magical ceremony. The ceremony is really a ceremony of transcending human boundaries. It combines and integrates within the pristine humanness that all have within them, the Godhood that you have within you, as well as the high angelic kingdom of the angel gods. So the mystical kingdoms, the human kingdom, the Godhood kingdom are all integrated, and together an alchemy forms that releases magical abilities within you. It is a very sacred and powerful ceremony that we have been gifted by the Infinite. I can highly recommend that you participate in this. It is with great joy that I realized that Ella would be teaching more about the magic of the gods. It is a priceless and precious body of information that was given, and one that all too soon we had moved beyond and received further revelations, and it really wasn't fully explored. Those who gravitate towards this work, you are from the God Kingdom, walking in forgetfulness among man, but your DNA is different, and the magic of the gods has a double blessing. Not only does it facilitate great changes in your life, but also it activates and brings online the enhanced qualities of the God Kingdom's DNA which you have. In other words, it helps you live more like a god or a goddess. Isn't this the most precious gift? It is not one we should skip over lightly, and so, with confidence and my full blessings, I am grateful that Ella is facilitating the in-depth study of this body of information. As you may have heard in some of my previous teachings, there are 3 stages of resurrection. Just as there are 3 stages in the evolution of man, there were 2 stages in godhood. Now there are 3 stages in resurrection. It is in the 3rd stage where there is yet again a profound transformation. Actually, it's a transcendence that happens to the body and the fields around the body. It is in the 3rd stage of resurrection in which the meridians are replaced by a unified field. But its metamorphosis begins in the 1st phase of resurrection. So it is necessary for you to study, to prepare, and get yourself ready, because if you can begin right away, such a transition will be far, far more graceful, elegant, and easy. And it is necessary. We don't want to have enormous changes take place and knock the foundation out from under our feet if we can prepare for them by looking ahead and they can come with ease. So it is an important topic to learn how to prepare to form a unified field of the 20 meridians.
And that was the mystic and seer Almin discussing the courses of the magic of the gods and evolved man, which really came through Ella of the Russian light family aspect, centered around Almin's teachings, and she was teaching all of that. So this is all available still online for you. You just need to go and research it. Otherwise, we can give you the links if you really can't find that. In Almin Diary, there was some more aspects to do with this, details of witchcraft. When these things and questions keep getting repeated, it means we're at a very important moment cosmically, because it means we are all working through changing our perception or allowing some depth and processes to change within ourselves here. And it is titled A Cosmic Capital Offense. And for our listeners who are not aware of it, you can just go onto almindiary.com, and on the right-hand side of that website, there is a link to each day's or each particular post that we're speaking about. What we like to do within the show is put them together with our insights, because they're all absolutely relevant. So the question that was posed to Almin really was, why only now has witchcraft ended? And only now after the witches went after Trump. Black magic has existed for eons and has tormented many. And being that black magic is with intent to control, manipulate, suppress, and sometimes destroy another, why has it been allowed all this time? And why was Trump the final blow? So from my perspective, I've been trying to examine this, and I've been sharing with a lot of the light workers and people around the world. And one of the things that I've been realizing is that Trump is one who breaks down old barriers and boundaries and old programmings. And we have to process a lot of that particular information. So nothing new in terms of our sharings there. But I think the world is also ready to look at things on a completely different level and no longer be controlled. And I'm seeing that in every aspect of the world, not just in the US. And Almin gave a short discourse 3 or 4 weeks ago about the sacred cow of democracy, and we had a whole show on that. And we should be careful of our sacred cows, etc., etc. So we're seeing all of that going on, and I'm not going to go through the whole Almin response here because it is available online, but I'd just like to point out that there's a particular post that we are working with tonight which is relevant. And she says there that witchcraft has kept coming back because of areas in our life we keep trying to control. And this is what we're speaking about, Diane. After my journey to what used to be the lower underworld, and remember what used to be, it means it's gone.
Yes.
I had quite severe post-traumatic stress disorder and felt the unfamiliar feelings of terror. My way of dealing with it was to allow myself a certain amount of compulsiveness. It has taken me 2 years to stop trying to control the orderliness in my environment and to stop trying to anticipate and prepare for the folly of others, especially since I can most frequently see it coming. That's what we were saying earlier. And there's a second problem that has kept bringing it back. Doing black magic deliberately creates extreme karma. The practitioner keeps having to experience it back from others. But this time felt different in this regard. It had become a cosmic capital offense. It could mean the loss of individuation if she understands the prophecy correctly. But the word cosmic and capital and offense to me seems so incredible in terms of a title. We could use it for a newspaper article just to get a response. It's very journalistic. And if you look at things on a cosmic level, everything is playing out in its perfection. And when humanity is ready to raise itself to the next level of frequency, and then so it happens. And of course, we have these doorways along the way. And for me, Trump is a doorway. And we have to work with all, just the same as we have other situations in our country, here in South Africa. But the word capital is also very important for me there because, Washington, the White House, it must be all related in terms of this particular aspect of it. So, there is a capital process going on here. We need to look at it in terms of its importance and its perfection that is unfolding for all of us. And then the last word, offense, for me, really great because People are feeling very defensive, very offensive a lot of the time. Great opinions along the way. And I think one of the things that for me to see is just look at the perfection underlying every single thing and try and work with that. And that keeps me sane most of the time.
Paul, you know what's just come to mind is that word you talked about, Washington and the White House. Now, often in literature, the White House is seen as a kind of sepulchre, the sepulchre where you would keep dead bodies. And I'm just thinking that could the White House be a symbolic of old belief systems, old manners and old ways of behaving, old programmings that are now literally dead, dying, and tossed out.
Function,
no longer.
You're getting a head of state desperately trying to control, run their way through everything, and just being denied.
Yes, and using the old ways of negotiating your way in a reality that is completely different.
Very,
I'm
very
just
insightful.
wondering.
Very, very insightful. Wow. Okay. So everything's also, I think, in relation to these posts and to people's questions. Sometimes I do feel, and I'm just hitting it right on the head here for myself, that sometimes the questions that are posed to Almeen are created in order to try and maintain people's perception as it is.
Yes.
And she's just an absolute brilliant master at phrasing it in a non-defensive way and just allows us to see a different perspective. And for me, that's very powerful.
You know, I was listening, Paul, and I think many of our listeners also listened to the free webinar, which I think ran, I'm not sure, was it Saturday?
Yeah.
And there Ella and Sergei spoke about perhaps having to go back and address insights that the completeness of it had not been gleaned, and having to just step back a little, take a little bit of time, rethink, relook at, and then move forward, because there are insights that needed to be got, there are lessons that needed to be learned. So possibly we do need to, we've rushed through this portal now, but that doesn't mean that the door is closed behind us, that there may be a period where we have to just step back a little, relook at things that we hadn't actually got the gift of it, and then move forward.
Or we haven't got the full insight necessary to carry that frequency to its fulfillment.
Yes, absolutely.
Something else can come along.
Yes.
So and I think that's absolute wisdom, saying, there's, and again, I'm going back to the point, there's actually just a journey here. There's no arrival point whatsoever.
And to linger over a beautiful rose and take note of the way the petals are formed and the beautiful fragrance can never be seen as a failure. So going back doesn't mean you failed. It means you've just perhaps missed the beauty of a moment that was given.
And really for more depth of that experience and really appreciate the beauty of it all. But again, I'm just, I hope I don't make you blush a bit much here. And Diane, you're a master at being able to see the beauty in all of those exquisite moments and just, you document it.
Well, I have been doing that over the last 2 or 3 years. So, and I must say that's made a difference. Almeen talked a little bit just now about frequency and how ceremonies and sigils and wheels contain the frequency, and then that is combined with the light of insight and perception and power. So once again, that frequency and light seem to work hand in glove.
Really incredible. And we must understand power and perception is light and frequency, and we've so often said that we can highlight something with light, but then if we try to fix it, we're just fixing more of the same and highlighting something that is in dysfunction. And we need that frequency, we need that charge of energy or vibration to actually lift us away and create a state where we're more powerfully able to see where our own journey lies and what it is that we can do to make those changes for ourselves.
Paul, Ella was talking about going into the stage of resurrection. And what happens there, and this the magenta light seems to reveal, are those little pockets of shadow that reappear, and you have to look at that, and that's the gift of that particular stage. So that just, dovetails exactly with what you're saying, that you have to go back, you have to look at it, you have to re-appreciate and then move forward again.
I think the same thing happens on a healing level, is that we have to use the basics all the time and never think that we've grown away from them. Just to have the appreciation of what it is that we have been practicing and just bring that in when everything else gets out of line or in chaos or there's just problems. Just go back to our basics of it. And I think this aspect of working with the ascension attitudes, which is taught within Belvaspatar, is huge. And I know you've been working on that a lot this last little week. So ascension attitudes really is that we must understand that there's never a point of arrival. We need to learn how to live in our highest truth in each moment with impeccability, which is the way of the Toltec warrior.
Yes.
Impeccability has been defined by Almin as living the highest truth that you're capable of in each moment. So then how do we define ascension? There's two main paths that lead to ascension, either through the mind, using techniques that assist in learning to focus and still the mind, such as meditation and visualizations. And then there's also a way of through the heart, and this is by living and expressing the three ascension attitudes of love and praise and gratitude. Belvaspatar, of course, includes the sigils and the connections, the telephone lines for these three ascension attitudes, and they're used at the end of a healing session or initiation to close it. So just sharing about the aspect from Belvaspatar and why it's so important to bring those particular aspects into being. Just the same as I spoke about that angel earlier, having a particular sigil.
Yes.
So let's work with those ascension attitudes and divine love. But I'm thinking, and it's not something I've really investigated very much, but I've been thinking in the last few days about the aspect of compassion, following earlier shows, conversations, and how when we put love and praise and gratitude together, it is divine compassion.
Yes.
Because you're dealing in all these frequencies which are just, you are that frequency, you're emitting it, and therefore you are living in the divinity of that expression.
And therein lies the gift. You are that expression. You are love. People talk about falling in love and loving another. Love is not an external thing. It is within you. And yes, there are elements of what, and Almin makes the distinction of the sort of stereotype version of love. And she talks about not being able to love in the same way any longer. And I'm just going to read this to you.
Sure.
She says, I tell my light family I love them, but every time I do, I'm aware that I simply don't feel what others would describe as love. I have done some ruthless self-examination to understand what those words mean to me. And she talks about her heart having irregularities and fluttering and fast heartbeats. And that is because I've tried to feel this kind of stereotypical love. And she says it's simply not natural to me. It is time to acknowledge to myself that she can't really see that and love that way any longer. And I'm going to read the 5 points that she gives.
Sure, but that love belongs to an old attitude, an old quality of understanding,
absolutely,
which we try and perpetuate onwards as being right and the only way. I mean, society is full of that.
And that kind of love, I realize, is a love that is not inclusive. It's a love...
It's needful in a way, is it not?
Absolutely.
On some levels,
it's needy. It's a love that is exclusive. You only love certain people, and it depends on how they behave. Whereas she talks here about a divine love. And we need to be aware of this, that love doesn't mean you drop your boundaries and let others in to trample or invade the privacy so needed by a highly developed being. That's number one. Number two, inclusiveness doesn't mean that you diminish yourself or overestimate in order to equalize what isn't equal. Number three, because another expresses love to you, it doesn't mean that you have any justifiable reason to expect certain entitlements. Number four, you are creating the expressions of others in your environment. So to feel earthly love for them, and this I really have to think about, is like the potter who wants to keep all his pots because he's grown attached to them by loving them. And then finally, it is not love to excuse or to put up with the unacceptable. It is dysfunctional.
I'm just laughing, and dead any time as I go through the laugh. So I just, can I just share with you the absolute, and we've been working with that wisdom from Almeen for a while. It's holding me so safe a lot of the time. And, one of our members within Belvaspetar South Africa has just undergone a hip replacement after really working with this for many years. And last night I sent her that exact same post before this operation took place, and just to say to you, I've learned so much from her courage of deciding that it's the right time for her to go and do this, because she hasn't been able to walk at times. And it takes a lot of courage to go for an operation and to put yourself through all of this, the pain and the suffering, whatever's ahead, it's pretty intense. And I said, I've just learned from this particular post and her courage of doing it is that we are so focused often on making sure that no one around us is in a space which is dysfunctional and disturbing us, so we get rid of them. There's no compassion in that when we are not understanding our own bodies are also dysfunctional on some levels, and by allowing it to continue to suffer, it's a dysfunction, it's a disability. We're not honouring the highest form of the body either. And that's what I learned last night, so I just sent her that message. And she sent one back to me and said, yeah, I'm also thinking about it this way too now. And I said, well, isn't that amazing? The courage that you've had now has opened that door for all of us to walk through. Literally, excuse the pun, walking through. But she's walking into a new life now. And a new process. So, and now you've just brought out exactly the same words. Wow.
It is all imperfection.
So there's a website called www.lovehaswon.org. And it's an incredible website of just inspiration. Factually, we may not be 100% with all of it. It doesn't really matter to me. I just like to use this next track as inspiration. And what we've done is we've actually recorded it earlier on the show. And it's just really walking about the aspects and symptoms of the star seeds of the world, of us, and the activations and symptoms as the DNA continues in everything that we've experienced. So Nico has played some beautiful music on his new keyboard for us, and I've tried to be incredibly poetic as I've read through this. And it is a few minutes long, but we've done it, recorded it on purpose so we can send it to everybody who asks
how
for it.
Wonderful.
And
what a beautiful gift.
That.
Thank you so much.
We'd like to listen to that, and then we'll continue afterwards. Hello everyone, this is Paul. I'd just like to share with you that very often we need to adjust our approaches, adjust our attitudes, and become inspired by seeing the perfection of the current moment, of the issues and experiences that we are perhaps going through, that we are processing. And there's a beautiful explanation about the current ascension symptoms and the shifts in the DNA that are being experienced by all of us. And this information that we are playing for you right now comes from an incredible website called www.lovehasworn.org. And just to let you know that Nico is playing a keyboard in the background for us, and just adding a whole beautiful dimension of more love for us as we do this recording. So the website lovehasworn.org says this: know that although our evolutionary process is accelerating rapidly along with the new higher energies, we are all experiencing these changes in our own way and in our own time, according to who we are. And generally speaking, our ascension process relates to how we each run our own individual energy and what our beliefs and experiences are. In other words, how we vibrate. These things can be changed and will also change automatically as we clear and embody more light within ourselves. May your evolutionary process be joyous, peaceful, and filled with light and wonder. It's feeling as though you are in a pressure cooker or in an intense energy storm, feeling stressed. Remember, you are adjusting to a higher vibration, and you will eventually adjust. Old patterns, behaviors, and beliefs are also being pushed to the surface. There's a lot going on inside of you. So the following are starseed symptoms which are occurring due to our awakening and the DNA activation that is going on. There's a feeling of disorientation, not knowing where you are, a loss of a sense of place. You are not in 3D anymore, as you have moved or are in the process of moving into the higher realms. Unusual aches and pains throughout different parts of your body. You are purifying and releasing blocked energy, vibrating at 3D, whilst you are vibrating in a higher dimension. Waking at night between 2 and 4 a.m. Much is going on in your dream state. You can't be there for long lengths of time, and you need a break. Also, more highly evolved individuals spend more time on the earth plane, and you are highly evolving. Periods of deep sleeping. You are resting from all the acclimatizing and are integrating, as well as building up for the next phase. Heightened sensitivities to your surroundings, crowds, noise, foods, TV, other human voices, and various other stimulations are barely tolerable. You also overwhelm very easily and become easily overstimulated. Remember, you are tuning up. You just don't feel like doing anything. You are in a rest period. Your body knows what it needs to do. An intolerance for lower vibrational things of the 3D realm is reflected in conversations, attitudes, societal structures, healing modalities, etc. They literally make you feel sick inside. You are in a higher vibration and your energies are no longer in alignment. You are being pushed to move forward. There's a loss of desire for food in some cases because your body is adjusting to a new, higher state of being. Also, part of you does not want to be here anymore. A sudden disappearance of friends, of activities, of jobs and residences. You are evolving beyond what you used to be, and these people and surroundings no longer match your vibration. The new will arrive soon and feel so much better. You absolutely cannot do certain things anymore. When you try to do your usual routine and activities, it feels downright awful. Same as above, actually. Days of extreme fatigue. Your body is losing density and going through intense restructuring. A need to eat often, along with what feels like attacks of low blood sugar, weight gain, blood pressure. You are requiring an enormous amount of fuel for this ascension process. Experiencing emotional ups and downs, weeping, crying, laughing. Our emotions are our outlet for release, and we are releasing a lot. There's a wanting to go home, as if everything is over, and you just don't belong here anymore. We are returning to source. Everything is over. But many of us are staying to experience and create the new world. Also, our old contracts have been completed. There are sometimes feelings that you are going insane, or must possibly be developing a mental illness of some sort. You are rapidly experiencing several dimensions and greatly opening. Much is available to you now. You are just not used to it. Your awareness has been heightened and your barriers are gone. There's anxiety and panic because your ego is losing much of itself and it's afraid. Your system is also on overload. Things are happening to you that you may not understand. You are also losing behavior patterns of a lower vibrational level that you have developed and created for survival whilst in 3D. This may make you feel vulnerable and powerless. These patterns and behaviors you are losing are not needed in the higher realms. There's depression, because the outer world may not be in alignment with the new, higher vibrational you. It doesn't feel so good out there. You are also releasing. Vivid, wild, and sometimes violent dreams. You are releasing many, many lifetimes of lower vibrational energy. Many are now reporting that they are experiencing beautiful dreams. Your plans day to day can change in midstream and you can go in a completely different direction. because your soul is balancing out your energy. It usually feels great in this new direction, as your soul knows more than you do. It's breaking your rut of choices and old vibration. You have created a situation that sometimes seems like your worst nightmare, with many worst nightmare aspects to it. Your soul is guiding you into stretching into aspects of yourself where you were lacking, or into toning down aspects where you had an overabundance. Your energy is just simply balancing itself. Finding your way to peace through the situation is the test that you have set up for yourself. This is your journey, and your soul would not have set it up if you weren't ready. You are the one who finds your way out, and you will. Looking back, you will have gratitude for the experience and be a different person. There's dizziness, and this occurs due to being ungrounded. This can happen when you have just cleared an emotional block and the body has not yet completely embraced its new frequency. Eating grounding food, such as potatoes, will help. There's flu-like symptoms, fevers that are temporary, often accompanied by sweating, by aching bones and joints, red rashes are small fears that erupt and occur in any part of the body. This happens when there is an issue that's ready to be released and you are just squelching it because you don't want to rock the boat or make a scene. The little blisters represent your inner child's anger and not being allowed to express. Ringing in the ears. This can drive you to distraction, but these sounds are just you picking up frequency changes. Heart palpitations. As you clear old issues, your heart opens. This opening is experienced as a racing heart, which only lasts a few seconds. No, you're not having a heart attack. The heart must also rebalance itself after an emotional release. There's vibrating of the physical body, and this is especially disconcerting. Many of you may think that you are being abducted, since this usually happens at night and is part of the process of being moved back and forth to and from the ships. In this case, it is not. It is simply the body adjusting to DNA upgrades that occur after emotional clearing. There's muscle spasms. These spasms can be intense, and many are felt in the upper back. They are caused by emotional imbalances that occur when you take on the emotional burden of others in order to be accepted and loved. These will decrease as you learn new behaviors that support allowing others to feel their pain without having to rescue them. Tingling in the arms, the hands, and the feet. These are more DNA changes occurring due to energy centers clearing and realigning. Tiredness, the needing to sleep. Yes, again, DNA changes. Your body needs rest to integrate the changes occurring at the cellular level. We recommend that you adjust your schedule to try and accommodate an afternoon nap if possible, but make it a priority. And you will find that you are much more productive afterwards. You may even be experiencing faster hair or nail growth. And since the activation of the hormone called compassion in November 1996, more protein is being used in the body. Protein is used by the high heart in the transmutation of lower chakra emotions into compassion. Compassion is the emotion that changes your DNA. A byproduct of this is that your hair and nails grow faster. Weight gain. This occurs because many fears that have been held in check are coming up to be integrated. When this happens, the inner child moves to protect itself by putting on armor. This armor will be released when the fear is integrated. As a result, many experience weight fluctuation. Frequent memory lapses. This can so be a real irritation. Understand that it is partially due to the magnetic grid wobbling and also to the shifting occurring in the brain. Remember, this fifth world that we are entering means that each person must use their gifts of birth to accomplish their missions in life. And this is the contribution that each one is obliged to offer. everyone has a place in the great medicine wheel of truth. And again, thank you. Reminder that we've been listening to music with Nico, and these words come from the symptoms of the awakening and DNA activations we're all experiencing, as published on www.loveasone.org. Thank you. In studio with Radio Belvaspata South Africa, with myself and Diane, Nico on sound desk, doing an incredible job there tonight. There we were listening just to a recording we made of an article posted up on lovehaswon.org. I think during that recording I was saying love has worn, which is quite entertaining in terms of its humour there. But it just shows, I think, Diane, where we're at the moment, and talking really the theme of the show. Never mind the mayhem, the murder, the mystery, the magic. Yes. Love has won. And I think that's really what we are talking about in essence tonight, and understanding that divine compassion and practicing these ascension attitudes has brought us to this point.
I think, Paul, sorry, I'm also just thinking the magnificence of the body being used as a tool to evolve consciousness. What a magnificent manifestation of love and compassion is that, to have given this magnificent body to us as an expression of the infinite.
And I think also giving ourselves permission to dissolve density within these structures is also an important milestone for us to realize.
Yes. And as the illusions dissolve, so all this energy becomes available. So that too is never wasted.
Very much.
So efficient.
Really incredible.
This whole process.
Have we not had a wonderful show tonight?
It has been
sharing and
magical.
Being together. Thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you, Paul.
Bringing all of that wisdom and your presence with.
Oh,
and just a reminder to our listeners as well, please go onto Diane's Facebook page and just friend request her there. And it's Diane Stradom, and it's spelled, obviously, Diane is D-I-A-N-E, and her surname S-T-R-Y-D-O-M. And just share the beauty of what she has created there and what she's posting up quite regularly, and just working with the beauty of dreams and art, and working with this artistic moment of just clarity of where we're at, and just coming in from Diane's perspective. It is so healing. And I know that her Facebook page is taking off. So please join there and add comment, or just enjoy what she has to share in terms of her art and her comment that she writes so regularly and from such a beautiful space. Oprah Winfrey says, "What I know for sure. Often we don't even realize who we are meant to be because we're so busy trying to live out someone else's ideas. But other people and their opinions hold no power in defining our destiny."
And that's really just beautifully encapsulating what magic is and what magic is not.
All of that.
Yes.
Being authentic and working with it. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to us. If you're listening live or via the podcast version of the show tonight, this is Thursday, the 9th of March, Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. Thank you for gathering together to listen to us, taking the time. Thank you for sharing your comments. Darshana, thank you for your comment. I'm glad on speaker tonight. We're glad that you're getting something out of the show too, in terms of some inspiration and understanding. Remember, everyone, we are one. We just need to understand that in the long run, our perspective and power is all coming into the fore, and let us begin to work the magic through the mystery. And the mayhem then dissolves because we understand its role in perfection as well. Good night, everybody, and thank you. We'll see you again next week, taking one step into a gracious life and then the next.
Good night, all.
You've been listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. Thank you for listening and sharing in our discussion. Should you have any questions with regards to the healing modality of Belvaspata, or have any healing needs, please send us an email to info@belvaspata.co.za, or add comments to our page on Spreaker.com, so we can work on providing a suitable response. We now close this episode with the eternal ascension qualities of love, praise, gratitude and trust, and look forward to sharing again with you next week. Goodbye.